All right. Good evening, everybody. Can anyone hear me? Excellent. Okay. So, welcome, everybody. All right. So, we'll go ahead and we'll join palms as we begin. You can repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. So, good evening, everyone. Again, welcome to Tuesday night's Intro to Buddhism and Meditation, live at an undisclosed location. Good to be with you all. I always like to start, especially since we've gone to kind of going online, just with a little question, um, just to get everybody kind of started and settled in, um, about something good or pleasant or joyful that you did or that happened to you today. Um, so why don't we take a few moments, and for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, welcome. There's a chat box there on your screen. You can kind of type in um, something good that happened to you today, or something joyful, something pleasant. So we'll take a couple minutes for that. I gotta change this real quick, but I'll let y'all type in while I do this. All right. Made gifts for friends. Son turned 2. Samir, happy birthday to your boy. 7-year-old is with me for this session and hit the singing bowl when Jeff hit his. Nice. That's great. Reconnected with a dear friend. Today's my dad's birthday. Happy birthday to Brian's dad. Lots of good things happening. Daniel, maybe we could just spend an hour and just hit the singing bowls back and forth. Your son would probably love that. Or not. What else? Anyone who's joining us that just jumped on? Question of something good that happened to you today, or something joyful, something pleasant, just something positive that you can reflect on. And if you want to type it in there, you can share it there as well. He hit it again on cue. Well, for everybody else's sanity, I won't spend the hour hitting the bells as much as I'd love to. Anyone else want to share anything positive or good that happened to them today? Stayed safe and comfortable from a tropical storm. That's important. Good to be safe. Anything else before we get started with the meditation? All right, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Just going to refresh this here. So we'll start with a meditation practice. Um, Give me 1 second here. Sorry. Okay. So for those who might be joining us for the first time, or a reminder for those who are always with us, a couple things to tell you before we begin the meditation. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical or magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working? Is it not working? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside wherever you are, maybe sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with sounds, and the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all the sounds. Don't expect anything. If you're sitting there waiting for some grand aha moments or deep realizations, you may be pretty disappointed. So we're just going to sit and we're going to breathe. I will guide us as we begin. Posture, if you're on a cushion, often helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward, allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on a bench or chair or bed or couch or whatever it is, just try to sit up straight. Again, relaxing the shoulders. Hands are in the knees or lap. I'll suggest closing the eyes if comfortable or slightly open. Mouth will be open or closed, whatever's comfortable. So I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, you'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise, and breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath, expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Return to breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. And with the body still, rested, the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is, sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. And ask yourselves how you'd prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called Pratitya Samupata, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. And for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not necessarily easy. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape. Often people use it to escape from the craziness in their lives. And if your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation doesn't fix that. It just makes you become aware of it so you can make changes in your daily life. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else you encounter every moment of your life. And that's it. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. In reality, not much changed. So, with that, the only thing I really want to touch on after meditation is just a reminder of the practice of patience. In Buddhist teachings, there's what's called the six paramitas. Paramita translates to perfection. And these are six practices that for me are really the heart of Buddhist teachings: generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, wisdom. Generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. And these are, I find, really beautiful words, practices, lessons to bring into every day of our life. And the practice of patience is critical. Patience with yourself, patience with others, patience with family and friends and loved ones, patience with strangers, patience with those you know and like, and patience with those you dislike. But to always work on practicing patience, regardless of what the situation is, to allow time to pass while we focus on our intentions, our actions, the cultivation of compassion, wisdom, and to be patient. So, just a reminder briefly for everybody. But with that, I always prefer, and for those who might be joining us for the first time, again, welcome. I really prefer to just use the rest of the time tonight to open up to questions on meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. I much prefer addressing what is on your mind than going off on my own tangents. So, again, if you just joined us or joined a little late, there's a chat box there. You can type in your question or comments, and I will respond. So anything related to Buddhism, Buddhist practice, or meditation, I would be happy to address. So I'll turn it over to you all and go from there. How come anxiety, stress, and anger is so much more prevalent when exhausted and tired, and equanimity is so much harder to achieve? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that we're often exhausted and tired because we spent all day living our lives filled with stress, anger, and anxiety, as sad as that sounds. Um, so when we say that it's so much more prevalent when we're exhausted and tired, uh, being stressed out all day is exhausting. Being angry all day is exhausting. Being anxious all day is exhausting. So in many cases, maybe for you, Samir, maybe not, or maybe for others, the reason that we are so exhausted and tired is actually because we're stressed, anxious, and angry all day. And then when our routine stops and we kind of settle down for the evening or the end of the day or whatever it might be, um, we think, wow, I'm really exhausted and tired. And now I'm stressed and anxious and angry. When in reality, you may have been that way all day. So, I would agree in most cases, if we're exhausted and tired, in theory, that we may be triggered quicker, have less of a, you know, less patience with others. But I still think if we spend all day dealing with anger, stress, and anxiety and keeping it manageable and under control, you won't be as exhausted and tired at the end of the day. And therefore, you will have kind of managed these emotions in smaller doses as opposed to ignoring it all day long and then letting it pile up at the end of the day. My master in Taiwan used to say you got to sweep leaves every day. And there were a lot of leaves, and we'd sweep every day. And at the end of the day, so the leaves were all gone and put away. And then you wake up the next day, and what do you have? You have a whole pile of leaves again. And you'd have to sweep again. And he would say, this is your mind. That if you let the leaves pile up and you don't sweep every day, it's a mess. So often our minds are a bit of a mess. Um, and the second part of that, the equanimity is so much harder to achieve at that time, of course. And again, I still think that if we spent a day where we're exhausted and tired, and then at the end of that, we're trying to find equanimity, we're doing it. I think, again, you look at the Eightfold Path, the correct view. The correct view is to spend all day without so much anxiety, stress, and anger, and to spend all day with a little more equanimity. Then we're not trying to just cram it all in at the end of the night. So change what you do in the morning, change what you do in the afternoon, change what you do at night, and hopefully those emotions don't get so severe, and the equanimity is really with you all day. Um, there's so much anger, hatred, and division in the country now. How do you live with that without becoming discouraged or hopeless? Um, for me personally, and Anne, you've known me for quite a while now. I don't ever get discouraged or hopeless with anything. Uh, I think that the practice of the Buddhist teachings has taught me patience, has taught me um, to listen. It's taught me to understand that each person is coming from their own place of challenges. And, I get it. It's really easy to jump and say there's so much hatred and division in the country. Well, you could walk outside and, in normal times get on the freeway at 5 o'clock, and there's so much hatred and anger on the freeway at 5 o'clock. And you've listened to me talk enough about, again, these are things that we're probably not doing right now, but the examples of going into a Starbucks and ordering a coffee and a latte is made the wrong way, or, your food's made the wrong way, or whatever it might be. And so there's so much hatred and anger and division within our own minds and our own hearts within so many things that we do. So I think to just skip the everyday hatred and anger and division that we carry and kind of magnify it and say it's in the whole country. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you, um, but I'm incredibly motivated and encouraged and have hope because I understand that there's an endless continuation of consciousness and karma and time happening. And there has been, for endless time, again, to use your words and the words of the Buddhist teachings, anger and hatred. For endless time, there's been anger and hatred in the world. And for endless time going forward, there's going to be anger and hatred in the world. And at times it's more prevalent than others, or it impacts individuals more than others. Um, but for me, again, coming back to what this practice has taught me, is that if I wake up each day with this feeling of being discouraged and hopeless, that's miserable. And I find people and places and things to pour my heart, my motivation, my intention into. And that gives me a great sense of encouragement and hope. When I work with college kids, when I work with elementary school kids, when I work with adults here, sitting with all of you, um, this practice teaches me and then allows me to turn around and share it with all of you in whatever way at this moment I choose to do it, uh, to find beauty in everything. And I'm not saying that's easy. It's not. It can be incredibly difficult to find beauty in all the tragedy that is in the world right now. I get it. It's there. It's miserable. Uh, but my choices are to be miserable and depressed all day long, or to find something to stay motivated and inspired about. And, I always often, I should say, often default to the Gandhi quote of be the change you wish to see in the world. So, again, I'm not saying that there's not anger and hatred and division in the world, but is there anger and hatred and division in your heart? And that's where I start. Do I have any greed, any anger, any ignorance? Where's my pride? Where's my ego? Where's my suffering at? And how can I transform that into trying to make my heart and my mind healthier to be that way for others? And that's what gives me hope. I see so many. I just used this. It's an old, I think it was an old, maybe REM song, but the lyrics were shiny, happy people. I think shiny. Someone here will know it. Probably Marisa. But, there's lots of shiny, happy people in this world, and we encounter them every single day. That's why I asked at the start of tonight, something positive or joyful or happy. So find those things, find those places, find those people that bring you joy and happiness, and focus on them more often. But if you stare at the same social media, the same news channels, the same things that are just making you so angry and miserable all day long, it's going to be tough. So I'm not oblivious to what's going on. I'm very aware of what's going on. I pay attention to it. but I pay attention to it enough to where I know what's going on, not to where I spend 5 hours a day focused on it, because that's miserable. So hopefully that's helpful, but it is a challenge. Victoria, hello. Can you give some tips on focusing on the breath while also breathing naturally? Whenever I focus on my breath, my breathing ends up in anything other than a natural rhythm. Um, and yes, thanks, Marisa and Samir, for confirming the shiny, happy people holding hands. Um, so as far as the breath, focus on the breath while also breathing naturally. When you focus on your breath, you end up anything other than natural. So then use something else to focus on. uh, the idea is to just settle into a natural rhythm of breath and use the breath as a guide. But if you're focusing on your breath and it ends up being unnatural or an unsteady rhythm, then move your attention and focus elsewhere. And I talked about this last time. For me, as a Zen practitioner, my eyes are open, so I have a spot. Like right now, it might look like my eyes closed, but my eyes are open. They're about 2 feet in front of me, off the edge of my nose, and I have a spot on the little table here that I'm staring at. And so, use something to focus on other than your breath. The breath is a great thing to focus on because it's always with you. It's free. You don't have to go searching for something else to use as a meditation guide. You can just observe breath in and out. But if it becomes disruptive or distracting or anything, like you say, other than a natural rhythm, then just focus on something else. And that's just as good. Um, you can use a candle, you can use a flower, you can use, like I said, a spot on the wall, you can use an image, a picture, anything, a shoe, bottle of water, anything, just to focus on something that holds your mind present so your mind doesn't wander as much as it typically does. So try that. Hopefully that'll help. Other questions, thoughts? We could be shiny, happy people wearing masks. That would probably be Travis's title for the talk tonight. Okay, yay, now I can start. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, anytime myself or anybody who's leading says something such as, focus on the breath, we can become too obsessed with that. And if we obsess over any practice or any teaching, it really defeats the purpose of the teaching. So take any teaching or practice um, with kind of some lightness to it to allow yourself to just be as natural as possible. Other thoughts, questions, meditation, Buddhist practice? I tend to browse through sounds I'm hearing during the meditation in order to get away from dialogue. My mind likes to start. Um, yeah, I mean, just from a very basic, fundamental practice of meditation, there's so many different types, whether it's listening to sounds, whether it's a guided meditation, whether it's visualizations, whether it's just using sensation of breath. There's a lot of different types and ways to practice meditation. And I don't necessarily think any of them are right or wrong or good or bad. They're just different. So it's important to find a practice that really works for you. As far as browsing through sounds as as a way to get away from dialogue, yeah, I don't know that there's really that much difference. Browsing through sounds, dialogue, they're all distractions from the present moment. And for me, the practice of meditation is learning to be present with things as they are. So if we don't want to listen to the dialogue in our mind and we're escaping from the dialogue by escaping to sounds, we're still having thoughts about the sounds. Now, maybe it's a little more neutral or a little more pleasant, but ultimately, the dialogue in your head and the dialogue or stories around sounds, what's the difference? It's the same thing. So, if the purpose or what you're trying to accomplish to some extent is more of a steady, calmer uh, state of being when you sit, then my suggestion would be not forcing yourself to stop the dialogue by getting lost in sounds. My suggestion would be to recognize thoughts as they arise. Allow the thoughts to pass and come back to the present moment. Again, for me, that's why I use breath. It's what the Buddha taught. But the present moment could be a flower, a candle, a bottle of water, whatever it might be. And something that is neutral, that doesn't get you lost in thoughts. Um, now, this would be easier if I was talking to you, but to browse through the sounds, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but uh, if that means being aware of sounds as they arise around you, you hear a bird chirping, you hear a dog barking, you hear a car honking. Is that what you mean by browse through sounds, by just kind of paying attention to present time sounds as they're happening? Lisa, is that kind of what you're getting at? Yeah, I mean that's great. That's as present as anything really. So I think that's a beautiful practice. I think when I first read browse through sounds, I had this vision or image of like you like flipping through sounds on an iPad or something like that. But the word browse is what really threw me off. But I think for me, at least using that example, or if you try to explain it, it's the awareness of sounds. And again, in the Zen practice, or the really a single-minded focus, a present time awareness. So you're aware of things that are happening. But the idea is when you hear the sounds, right? So you hear a dog bark. Well, just hear the dog bark and then come back to present moment, because the dog bark, it's one bark, for example, and it's done. Or you hear a car driving by. It's one car, sound gets louder, gets quieter, and it's done. But don't jump in the car and start thinking about whose car is this? Where are they going? What are they doing? Why did they honk? Or whose dog is this? Why are they barking? What's going on? Just hear the sounds as they arise and don't create stories around them. Just be present with them as they occur, because each moment occurs moment by moment by moment, and then the moments are done. And here we are, just sitting, breathing. That's it. So, yes, awareness of sounds. It's a great practice a lot, especially if you do walking meditations. Obviously, your eyes are open while you're walking, and just being aware of sounds as they arise around you is really a beautiful practice. What else? Questions? We got a few more minutes before we wrap up. So, if anyone has any final question or two, I'm happy to address. Anything else? Let's see. Your dog was. Yes, Dave. We'll set up a one-on-one meditation competition next time. But He is a pretty good meditator. Samir, how can we be good people at work when the world often tends to reward those who backstab, cheat, and lie? Um, I mean, I'll kind of close with this thought. I wouldn't go so far as to say the world. When we make very large blanket statements, people say everyone does this, they do that. Like, who are they? Who is everyone? Right. So when you say something like the world tends to reward those who backstab, cheat, and lie. Um, I don't agree with that statement. There are people who backstab, cheat, and lie that maybe get rewarded, and there's people who backstab, cheat, and lie and don't get rewarded. There are people who do wonderful things and good things happen, and there's people who do wonderful things and bad things happen. What it really comes down to is our own individual karma. And I'll close with this thought, but karma is not getting what you deserve. Karma is not what goes around comes around. Karma is simply action. And as the Buddha taught, we generate karma three ways: body, speech, and mind: what we think, what we say, and what we do. So um, the practice is not to focus on, well, they backstab, cheat, and lie, and they're being rewarded. And so I am having a challenge being a good person or not a good person. These are two separate issues. You being a good person has nothing to do with what they do. You being a good person is all about you being a good person, minding your karma, being mindful, being aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do. What everybody else does, that's their mess. What you do is your mess. So, to me, the practice of backstabbing, cheating, and lying, things that I have done many times in my life, and I'm sure many of you have done in your lives, and sometimes good things happen from that. And sometimes we backstab, cheat, and lie, and horrible things happen from that. But the outcome is not what we should focus on. What we should focus on is being a good person for the sake of being a good person, not being a good person contingent upon what we get or don't get. Look at the intention behind your thoughts, your words, and your actions. Again, this is karma, what the Buddha taught. Body, speech, mind, what we think, what we say, and what we do. This is our karma. Karma is what we give, karma is what we bring into the world. My favorite metaphor for karma is if you're playing pool and you hit the cue ball into the rack and every ball goes into a different direction every time. Our life, we are the cue ball. And every person, place, and thing we encounter, person, place, and thing we encounter, we leave an impact. So it's the law of cause and effect. And I've spent way too much of my life. I spend way too much of my life living the life of the lying, the cheating, the backstabbing. And that's miserable. And once you really work on surrendering all of that and just practice working on kind thoughts, kind words, kind actions, and letting go of the result and the outcome, life becomes much simpler, much more pleasant. But if we stay stuck in this, what do I get from my actions? We're missing the entire purpose of what I think the Buddha was actually teaching. The Buddha didn't teach Buddhism to make sure that we are successful people. He didn't teach Buddhism to make sure we get promotions at work. He didn't teach Buddhism to make sure that we, you know, conquer anything. He taught Buddhism because he wanted us to learn a way to end suffering, or as I like to say, to decrease suffering, to suffer less. And if I backstab, cheat, and lie, myself and others are going to suffer more, period. So do those things less, and you'll suffer less. And let go of the attachment to the outcome of what you get or don't get from it. That's my suggestion. So hopefully that's helpful. With that, I'm going to close. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Evan during his time of rebirth, and to Marley and her family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So before y'all head off, just a few final words. Thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. Um, we opened the temple 14 years ago to be a bridge to introduce Buddhist practice to local folks. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So thanks for showing up. Every night we have different classes going on, whether it's YouTube or Zoom. Just go to the schedule on the website, dharmabums.org, and click on schedule. You'll see everything. But 90% of our classes are happening. Our teenage group, our college group, all of our recovery classes, Monday through Friday, morning meditation. During this time, we've been able to, with the help of many, really recreate our entire temple schedule online. So thanks to everybody who makes that happen and makes that special. These are not easy times, but we do our best to make them work. If anything out of the ordinary comes up, we'll let you all know. Our schedule is pretty standard right now. So as we do face the pandemic and everything we're working with, to me, it's an incredible Buddhist practice right now to be safe. If you go anywhere, wear a mask, wash your hands, and do what you can to protect others so no one out there gets sick from your actions. We've been closed since March 12th. We'll continue to stay closed until we feel it is safe to open up again. But as of now, we will continue with everything online. So again, thank you all for being here. I wish you well. If I never see you again, think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds. That's really the heart of this practice. So thank you all. Have a good night.